This video is sponsored by Hey Gears. Hey, Nick with CZ Minis here, and over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to try, keyword try, to speed paint an army. That's right, 2,000 points in 2 weeks. Can I do it? I really don't know. Why would I do this? Well, as of writing, today is July 3rd, and I have two problems. AOS 4th edition is releasing on the 13th of July, and the first league I'm going to join for the new edition starts on the 22nd. And now I want to speed paint up these Tomb King flavored Soul Blade gear to play in that league. None of that is really an issue though. My first real problem is time. There are only 19 days between now and the start of this new league, and within those days I only have a certain amount of time to hobby. Like most of you, I have a full-time job, family, and other responsibilities and needs that obviously take priority over painting models. So I'll need to make a realistic plan to conquer my hobby goal of getting this army ready for the tabletop in a little over 2 weeks. And I need to come up with a quick, easily replicatable speed painting recipe for me to use, because the other problem I have is the rules. At the time of writing, 4th edition isn't out yet, so I have no idea what the points are going to be like, how to build a list, or even what these little bone boys will be like on the table. Luckily, I have a bunch of skeletons, skeleton cavalry, and a few characters and monsters printed already, so I can start on these now and at least have the core of an army ready for when the rules finally drop. But when they do, I'm going to need to print off and paint a few new units fast, which I have the confidence to plan for thanks to today's sponsor, Hey Gears. They sent over a reflex printer last year, and it's the printer that I trust to this day to print my minis with virtually no fuss, issues, or print failures. Hey Gears are going to be sending over a new type of resin and a new, well, at least to me, printer component that we'll get into in a bit, because much like the 4th edition rules, that stuff isn't here yet either. So let's get started with what we have on hand. A portion of an army, a couple weeks at a time, and the goal of getting an army ready in that time, knowing that I'll need to pivot halfway through the process. All we need now is a plan.
So, what's the plan? Well, today's July 3rd, it is the evening, so today's kind of out already. Tomorrow's the 4th of July, a holiday here in the US, and I am not going to have any time tomorrow as well. Friday and Saturday are somewhat open. I'm thinking I can use these 2 days for all the creative aspects of the project. That's going to be stuff like doing some color tests, decorating these Bone Boy bases with some sweet little cacti, and lastly doing a test model. I think 2 days is plenty of time for that. So the actual production is going to be the week of the 7th and the week of the 14th. I think the 40 skeletons was a 4 or 5 hour time commitment, and I think I can do that over the course of 2 days. But just in case I'm wrong, which I almost always am, I'm going to give myself a buffer. That's going to be 3 days to do the skeletons. Once those are done, we'll move on to the cavalry. I think that's going to take a similar amount of time. My thought is 2 days. But again, we're going to add in a buffer just in case I'm wrong. 4th edition rules come out on the 13th, so I'm thinking we can figure out what the rest of the list is going to be during the weekend. And then the Hey Gear stuff should be in either the 15th or 16th. So these days will be print. Then we'll have the 17th through 21st to paint up everything that we're printing. That's the plan. Let's see how this actually pans out.
Everyone has a plan so they get punched in the mouth. Mike Tyson. July 7th. First day of production, and we started with a couple issues. The first issue is one that no one could ever account for, a toddler. My kiddo decided to skip his nap today, so we are starting in the late evening instead of during his nap as I had hoped for. I got out my airbrush and started to prime up the Bone Boys, but quickly ran to issue number 2, Clog. My airbrush and AK Interactive primers do not like each other, which is a shame because it's by far my favorite primer at the moment, despite all the issues I keep running into with it. The Clog was easy to clear after disassembling and using a little poker airbrush cleaning tool. But this did add some time to the step, which ended up taking about a half hour, including fixing that clog. After prime time, I gave my airbrush another quick clean before loading up the next color, a lovely golden brown from Procryl. This step is not at all necessary. I'm sure zenithaling straight to our brightest color would do just fine, but I like how it adds a hot, fresh, and sandy saturated sweetness to the mid-tones of the underpainting. Even though we're going for speed here, it doesn't mean we should cut out all unnecessary steps. If something takes a little longer but adds something to the overall look and feel, we should keep it in. Didn't have as much time as I expected today, but that's okay. That's exactly why we build buffers into our plan. Tomorrow we're gonna do the last airbrush step. Hopefully I have some time in the morning. we'll see. And then from there, it's just a little bit of brush work. Honestly, this is a super, super simple paint scheme. So excited to show you how it works. July 8th. I did have some time in the morning. After getting my kiddo out the door and going for a quick run, I had time for the last airbrush step on these 40 skeletons, which was an off-white color, heavy warm white from Pro Acryl. And this paint is a little different from all the other paints we've used so far because of its satin finish. Remember this, it'll be a very useful property in a future step. All the other paints we used for underpainting have been very matte in comparison. Fearful of another time delaying airbrush clog, this off-white and the previous golden brown were both thinned down quite a bit more, and I had to be careful not to overload the models with paint. I had to set aside the trays of minis whenever I started to see any paint build up in the crevices. It is significantly faster when painting in batches to just do 2 thin coats through an airbrush compared to dealing with a clog halfway through the batch. And it shows with the time it took to complete the step. Another 14 minutes and change, just like the previous color, which gave me just enough time to pack up my airbrush booth and get to work for the day. It is about 8:30. I'm done working for the day. My kiddo is down and asleep, and all my responsibilities have washed away. But I am super stoked to dig into these once again. We got some really exciting stuff to get cracking on tonight now that the underpainting is done. Next step involves some speed paint and a pop socket. I've been really liking this as a palette recently, and also it does this. And that's just so fun. Thank you for the tip on this, Uncle Adam. I found this gray one a couple months ago on Amazon. It's like $8. I'll put an affiliate link down below. You don't pay more. I get a small commission. You know the drill. I'm also putting a link to some big chunky paintbrushes I've been using recently. Because when you're speed painting, you're going to want a bigger brush. Bigger brushes allow you to spend more time actually painting models and less time going back and forth between the palette, the paper towel to wick off the excess paint, and your mini. Why waste time on something as unfulfilling as filling a brush? We've got minis to paint here. That's not to say a big brush is going to be the best suited for all aspects of these models though, but I found that being prepared to clean up mistakes as you go with a quick swipe of a semi-wet brush or Q-tip is faster than switching out brushes. This big brush allowed me to place down 1 thick coat of hardened leather speed paint from the Army Painter on all the leather bits, as well as any item that I wanted to be painted gold in a future step quickly. If I were to do this again, I'd set down the brush size a couple steps down to like a 7 or a 5 instead of this big chunky 10. For skeletons, it was just slightly unwieldy. July 9th. First step of the day was to spend about 10 minutes cleaning up some mistakes from using that unruly brush. A little bit of that bright warm white does the trick. Then I brought out some blue paint to mark 20 of the different models. These skeletons will likely be split into 2 blocks of 20, and I want to paint one unit skirts blue and the other red to distinguish between the 2 units on the table. The same red and blue were used to hit the little squares on the models, kind of like a little 1-row checker pattern. This is my least favorite part of this recipe. Don't get me wrong, I love the way that these end up looking, but the process itself felt painfully slow, which is surprising because all in it only took 23.5 minutes. Things like this are exactly why you'll see me time every step with a timer. It allows me to gauge what is happening based on data points instead of how I'm feeling at any given moment. I'm not saying that you should be timing what you're doing. This is a hobby after all. No one needs to treat it any more seriously than they like to. If you do try though, you might find the data interesting. Why did something that only took me 23 minutes to do feel like it took me ages? I'm not really sure, but it's probably something I should put some thought into. Probably when I paint some more checker patterns. We are so close, but it is past my bedtime, so the next 3 steps are going to have to wait till tomorrow. Tomorrow's the day. We're going to finish these and we're going to start on the cavalry.
Hey, Editor Nick here. This video is turning out just a little longer than I expected, and we're not going to be able to get to the Hager stuff in a little bit, so I wanted to quickly just take a sidebar and show you what kind of quality you can expect from their printers. Just look at these things. The print quality from the Hager's Ultracraft Reflex is absolutely incredible. There are definitely some support marks, but you're going to get that on any 3D printer on the market. I'm printing these up as a little planet and palette cleanser. Get it? Because they're hell divers. What's crazy is this big bug right here, this big old shrimpy. I actually printed on the lowest quality setting that Hager's offers, which is 100 microns. You can tell a little bit where the layer lines are on like the top of this guy's head, shrimp head. But honestly, I'm having trouble even like catching that in the light correctly so you can see it. Fantastic prints. And I cannot wait to show you what the reflex can do even in a time crunch in a few days, a little later in this video.
July 10th. Today was a remote day at work, so I had a bit of extra time in the morning. I tackled the dark wood for the totem staves and also put that same color on the swords, making them darker for a future metallic step. Speaking of which, the next steps were laying down some gold for all the little bug things on the shields and any other little fancy doodads around the minis. Next up was a dark silver color on all the swords.
Excellent news, we have a little bit of bonus time today because my wife is taking my kiddo to a swimming lesson. I got some chores to do, but first, I'm gonna hit these guys with an oil wash. Let's do it.
Oil washes are magical. Easy as heck to make, cheaper than acrylics, and slip into all the cracks and crevices you want with basically no effort. It goes on super fast. Only 11 minutes were needed to slather these 40 bone boys. Later that evening, when the skeletons were continuing to dry outside, I moved on to the cavalry. In theory, these should take around the same amount of time as the 40 skeletons, so I'm confident that we can knock this out in a few days. But you need to remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer. Disaster struck.
Well, I got 30 seconds into priming some of the cavalry and ran into a clog. It was like instant. So I just spent some time like disassembling it, trying to clean it again, cleaned out the nozzle, and then tried to like re-thread the nozzle tip to the airbrush nozzle itself. There's like a brass part and then a little tiny steel part, but the threading has stopped working. I've been trying to get this thing to just go in its spot for way too long, and I'm going to have to order a replacement part for that. Unfortunately, that is going to take a few days to get here, which obviously going to affect the timeline. So I'm a little frustrated right now, and I am going to go to bed. Pick this up in a couple days.
July 11th. I'm lucky the stars aligned the way they did in this project. After the setback of last night, I needed a win. And to me, there is no better win in mini painting than removing an oil wash. It is the most satisfying thing in the world. I started out with some Q-tips on these bead boys dipped gingerly in mineral spirits, but that was taking just a bit too long. So I switched to a makeup sponge, which has more surface area to work with. This allowed me to swipe once to reactivate the paint and another few swipes to remove the paint from the raised portions of the model, leaving the cracks and crevices nice and dark. Watching the dark wash being pulled away, revealing the true colors on the model below is just so satisfying that is hard to describe in words. These bone boys are perfect for this technique, and I need to give my appreciation to the sculptors of one-page rules for them. They are excellent. If you are interested, you can find the models on my mini factory if you search for Mummified Undead. And of course, I gotta mention how well the Hagear's Reflex did with printing them. Every detail captured immaculately. Removing the oil took a bit longer than applying it, a half hour compared to 11 minutes. And after it was done, I received a message that was unexpected.
I just got a message from a friend reminding me that we have club day next Saturday, 2 days before the league officially starts. And I think I'm going to try to expedite this army to have it fully painted for club day. Is that a good idea? Probably not, but we're gonna give it a try. Yeah, let's try.
July 12th. Life happened. Didn't have time to work on this at all.
July 13th.
Okay, so finally the new airbrush nozzle is in and I can finally get cracking on the cavalry again. The past couple days I have been going down the rabbit hole figuring out why my airbrush keeps clogging. Apparently, and I found this on some scale model forums, and apparently for airbrush primers, you're supposed to strain them, which I had never heard of before. I have some spare paint strainers. I use them to, strain out the resin vats. So I'm gonna give that a try and hopefully it helps.
Turns out that the AK primer is filled with little flecks of, well, something. Those little grains you can see here after the filter dried are certainly what was clogging my airbrush constantly. Glad I figured this out. With the primer strained and thinned down, I had no issues priming up this batch of bone cavalry and airbrushing the sandy sweet zenithal. But I did not have any time past this because today is the day where the Soul Blight Gravelord's rules came out on the Warhammer community page, and I needed to figure out what my army list is actually going to look like.
July 14th.
Okay, the rules are finally in, and I think I've figured out my list. Really excited about this. Let's dig in. Initially, I thought we were going to run those skeletons as skeletons, but they're kind of lame. So instead, we're going to run them as Graveguard, which have the same base sizes, and they are not lame. The cavalry are, of course, going to be run as Black Knights. Nothing crazy there. And then we're going to need some heroes. The first of which is going to be Radakar the Wolf. What he does is when he charged in the same turn, he can get +1 attack to all the skeletons wholly within 12 inches of him, which is dope. We have the Necromancer, and what he can do is once per turn on a 3-up, he can make a skeleton unit fight twice. Amazing. But it gets even better because we're also going to put in Manfred von Karstein. And what he can do is give +1 to the attack's characteristics if he's slain anything in the same turn. If these three all stack on a unit of 20 Graveguard, they're going to have 3 attacks each. That's 60 attacks, fighting twice. It's 120 attacks, +1 to wound, and you can easily give them +1 to hit with all attack. So that's 120 attacks, 2s and 2s, rend 1 with crit mortals. Oh my god. We have like 400 points left over though, so we're also going to throw in 2 units of Vargeists, which can teleport as long as they're not in combat every turn, and that's amazing. I'm so excited. Let's print out some stuff because we need to print out Vargeists, Manfred, a Necromancer, and of course, Radakar the Wolf.
Finally, we have the list and now we know what we need to print. Let's load up Blueprint, Hagear's specialty slicing software, and get these things going. The more I use the Hagear system, the more I love it. And it's for the same reason that it gets a lot of flack online. You may not agree with this, and that's totally valid, but hear me out. Blueprint doesn't let you tweak printer settings. Like at all. You don't have the option to fiddle with hundreds of print parameters you need to contend with when using other slicers. And yeah, you may see that as losing control of the printer, but to me, that's kind of a good thing. Blueprint and the Hagear system come preloaded with the perfect optimal settings to print with their resins. No fussing around or wasting time doing exposure testing to get things dialed in. I don't want 3D printing to become another hobby of mine. I just don't have the time for that. All I want printing to be is a tool that I can use when needed or desired. By removing all the specific print parameters, it allows me to focus on what I actually want to get out of 3D printing. Some sick-ass models. For instance, using these vultures for Vargeists. Cool Wolfman for Radakar. This We Have a Withers at Home for a Necromancer, and an absolutely badass Sphinx champion for Manfred. I'm easily able to throw the parts into the slicer, automatically orient them, hit full bed supports, and get going. If you want it to be even easier, there's a one-click print feature, but that does individual supports for each piece, and I prefer the full bed supports because then I can just pop one thing off the build plate instead of a bunch of little ones. Hey Gears, please add the option to do the full bed supports on the one-click print function. It would be perfect. The materials from Hagear still aren't here yet, but I have almost no worry that they will pose any risk to this project. It is so nice to have something that you can depend upon when working towards your hobby goals. Hagear's does have a sale on right now for $200 off of the Reflex and 2 free bottles of the PARP10 or PARP10 resin, a resin that they make specifically for miniatures, and I'll show that off shortly. This sale is going to be live till August 8th, and you can get it using the link below in the description, or use coupon code CCMINI, no spaces, at checkout, but use the link in the description. It's easier. Full disclosure, that is an affiliate link /code. If you do end up making a purchase, not only will you get that money off and free resin, but you also be supporting this channel. Thank you. And I can't wait to show you what the printer can do once we actually start printing. July 15th. And we're back to painting the cavalry. At this point, I had my list figured out and I only needed 10 of the cavalry instead of the full 20, so I put 10 to the side for now. and I started to miss those little trays that I usually use. It really is crazy how much of a difference having the models lined up one by one makes. And now going without it, it's pretty noticeable. It's not the end of the world, but these steps did feel like they took a little bit longer. Maybe it was the deadline creeping up on me. At this point in time, we only have 4 more days and we haven't even been able to start printing out the rest of the army. July 16th. Finally, the horses are ready for an oil wash and I got them slathered and moved outside as quickly as possible because the hay gear stuff is finally here. Let's talk about that pulse module. It was very easy to set up except for one step. I was confused for a while because the installation instructions mentioned a part that came in the pulse module release tank box instead of the pulse module box itself. But once I found it, it was very easy to install.
All you need to do is route these 2 little cables between the reflex and the pulse module. Replace your printer's LCD tape with a new tape. And install the air path adapter underneath where the resin tank goes.
The pulse module is like a little weird air compressor, which shoots a little bit of air under the FEP as the prints start to pull up, which has a few benefits. It increases the durability of the FEPs, it reduces the mass needed for support by 25%, and increases the speed of printing by about 20%. I checked in Blueprint on a couple of prints, and yes, the pulse versions are lower in time and materials estimated, but not by much. I really love the reflex system, but if you do get it, I don't think you need the pulse module. It's cool, don't get me wrong, but for the price, it seems geared towards somebody who is using this thing constantly, like day and night. Prints are going all the time, like a business or a prosumer type of person. If that is you, it's probably worth it. If not, I don't think you're gonna miss it. I got the first print ready to go overnight. Let's take a peek in the morning. July 17th. It's the morning and the first print was successful. While that processes, it's time to remove the oil wash from Bone Horseman. Oh my god, this was the most satisfying step to any project that I've done in a long time. Just look at this.
You'll notice something really cool start to happen here. With matte paints, oil washes leave behind a bit of a stain, even on areas where you try to remove the oil. But remember how I mentioned the satin finish on the warm white zenithal? Oil paints do not stain satin finishes, at least not as much. This means that the initial zenithal step is still paying dividends now, and the oil falls right off of those brightest highlights. And where there were shadows from the initial zenithal, the same areas with a super matte finish, well, those spots are even darker now, increasing the contrast of many. Beautiful stuff.
Removing the oil went fast, only taking about 13 minutes, and I set them outside to dry while I got to my actual job for the day. Now, before we start on the prints, I want to finish off these skeletons to literally make some room on my desk. Luckily, all we need to do now is the bases, and the next step is to give them an overall coating of golden brown. I wanted to finish these tonight, but I went a little too thick and it's taking longer than anticipated to dry. We'll get some powders on there when we do so with the cavalry, but for now I'm gonna put these away. Last thing of note today is another successful print on the Hagear's Reflex. I removed it from the build plate, cleaned it up, and got another print going before heading to bed. July 18th. The 18th was primarily spent processing prints, and god damn did these things turn out great. These are all being printed on Hagear's PARP10 resin, or PARP10, and I really like the subtle off-gray color to it. It's marketed as a purple, and yeah, it's technically purpley, kind of like how LaCroix is technically flavored. It's kind of like someone spilled a glass of grape juice on the floor in front of this particular vat of resin. I had to do 5 print beds in total, and I only had one part come out a little weird. I'm not really sure what happened with Manfred's big sword here, but I was able to add that part to another build plate, so no time was wasted. Dimensional accuracy, or recreating the specific sizes and shapes of the STLs, is needed for assembling prints that are done in parts. Like, look at these little slots. If the detail fuzzes too much and this peg becomes too big for its hole, or the hole itself becomes too small, you're going to have issues when you finally start to assemble your models. Issues that just don't pop up when using the Reflex.
Let's do a quick bend test for the PARP10 resin. Yeah, that's pretty wiggly. All right, let's compare it to the PAP 10 that we tested out in my previous Hager's video. I'd say they're pretty comparable with the bendiness, which is great. The PAP 10 resin has held up very, very well for the miniatures I've printed on so far, and I'm sure the PARP 10 will as well. Also, quick note on pricing, the PARP 10 resin is significantly cheaper. It's $45 compared to $60 with the PAP 10 resin. So Hager's is moving their way closer to normal, typical resin pricing. It's still a little elevated, but you end up going through a lot less of this because you don't have as many print failures with the Hager's reflex system. In my mind, it's worth it.
Thank God for the Hager's reflex printing ecosystem. If I had a single print failure, my whole project would have been jeopardized. They really came in clutch for me here. At the end of the day, I did not have much time left over after assembling the remaining models. I had just enough time to add some powder to the skeleton bases and give them a quick edge coat of a very dark brown. I know a lot of people prefer a black base rim, but I like to go very near black instead. This way, if there is any actual 100% black on the model itself, it will still read as darker than the base rim, increasing its perceived contrast.
So we have all the 3D prints ready to go, but tomorrow is Friday, and club day is Saturday, so we really only have tomorrow to fully paint these prints, and I also have to work tomorrow. I don't know if I'll be able to do this, but I guess we'll see. Luckily tomorrow I'm working remote, so in the morning, in theory, I can do the airbrush work, get that underpainting done, and then tomorrow night, after my kiddo goes to sleep, hopefully I can paint those models, including the big boy, in like 2 hours. I guess we'll see what happens.
July 19th. I had a bit of time before work in the morning and assembled the last few models. I was able to prime them and do a zenithal over my lunch break to get them ready for this night. The very last night I have before I need this army ready.
Oh boy. All right, it's Friday. It is just about 8:15. We have 9 miniatures to go, an hour and 45 minutes before my bedtime. I'm really not sure if I'll be able to pull this off or not, but we made this far. See if we can do it. I got my gloves on and got to work. The first few steps went easily. After practicing this style of painting for 2 weeks, everything felt pretty natural. But I had to quickly make some decisions. All the previous models had been strictly skeletons and skeleton cavalry. But skeletons don't have feathers. In the moment, I made the snap decision to model the birds off of the color patterns found in Egyptian vultures. These birds are naturally primarily white, which suits our underpainting well, and they have these glorious black feathers, which I chose to represent with a very dark gray speed paint. I was a little worried that going straight to black would have been too much contrast. The same dark gray was used on Manfred's Sphinx body, modeling him after the onyx statues native to Egypt. After these decisions were made, we were right back to the recipe I had been practicing these past 2 weeks, and I fell into a flow state. Time slipped right by, and I ended up working past my Betty Bye time. It was worth it though, because at the 2.5 hour point for the night, it was time to get this last batch of minis outside to dry until the morning.
Okay, it has been 2 hours and 20 minutes. I'm tired, but it's mostly because it's 40 minutes past my bedtime, guys. But I set out what I accomplished to do, and that is very satisfying. But what's going to be even more satisfying is when I pull the oils off tomorrow, maybe have time to finish the bases and go play that game.
July 20th.
Oh, I'm tired, but my kid's not awake yet, so I'm going to quickly remove the oil wash and then sleep some more. Oh, I'm not a morning person. Let's get through this though. I think I hear my kid. Oh, man. Is this it? Is this going to be the nail in the coffin? Am I not going to be able to finish this?
Luckily, I was able to finish the oil wash before going about my day until it was time to get everything together for the game.
While I go and get a game in, let's talk a little bit about time. So far, we are at 11.8 hours, but of course, that's not everything for this army. We still need to do the basing on the last 9 models. So we're going to just extrapolate that data. I'm going to base it off of the 10 horsemen that we did. So their basing in total was 15 minutes. Just to be very conservative, I'm going to estimate that this is going to take 50% longer, 22 minutes. And we're at about 12 hours and some change, which I'm very, very happy with that. Let's get a little more specific though. How long did just those 40 skeletons take? That was just over 5.5 hours. So 8 minutes, 20 seconds-ish each. I'm pretty happy with that. That's a pretty good time for a skeleton. How about the skeleton cavalry? 3.4 hours. So a little bit more than 20 minutes per model. For cavalry, I'm very happy with that. The other ones, the last ones that we did are a little bit weird. There's 3 hours, 15 minutes for those 9 minis. In total, again, using the extrapolated data for the bases. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I am very, very happy with how this project turned out, and 12-hour army. That's pretty good, right? Oh my god. So did the first game of AOS 4 earlier today, and it was the most fun with Warhammer that I've had in like a year and a half. It felt great. The current list, I'm trying to think of ways to make it better, but at this point, I don't know, because like it did really well. I played against Brian. He was playing Stormcast, and he had Karazai in the backfield, and with a unit of 10 Black Knights, they went in and in one turn dealt just enough damage to kill Karazai. And the last attack, the last wound on Karazai to bring him down was from one of the horse blows. How do I feel about the paint job? I like it. I think it turned out really, really nice, especially for, the amount of time. And what I really like is the fact that I can get this onto the table, have a fully painted army. I don't think you need a fully painted army to play Warhammer. It's just something that I personally like to have. And I like to be able to paint these things quickly so that I can just get more stuff on the table. I feel compelled to play with a painted army. I'm not saying you should. It does not bother me if anyone plays against me without a fully painted army. It's not a big deal at all. It's just, if I'm going to play, I want my things to be painted, and I'm happy these are painted, and I do really like the way that they turned out. I think I will end up touching up my counts as Manfred. I will definitely be touching him up a little bit just to bring him up, elevate him a little bit. Like I want to do some scratches and scritches and stuff on the leather and make that a little bit more defined. But it's at a great place. Like this is a completely acceptable model to have on the table. And I'm very pleased with how he is now and how I can see him turning out to be after just a couple more hours of work. Thank you for going on this journey with me. It has been an absolute blast. Please like this video to help it spread a little bit, and let me know what army you would like to see a speed paint on in the future. Liking and commenting really does help these videos spread across YouTube. Thank you for that in advance. Huge shout out to my patrons for making these videos possible. I cannot thank you all enough. And of course, huge thank you to Hagears for helping me accomplish my hobby goals and, sponsoring this video. If you want to pick up your own Reflex, don't forget about the link in the description below, or using the coupon code CCminis, no spaces, and the coupon code place on a website. You check out. It will give you $200 off at least until August 8th and 2 free bottles of the PARP 10 resin. It's great stuff. This was a very fast speed painting project, but if you want to know how to paint things even faster, you can watch this video right here. Until next time, y'all, stay happy and take care. Bye.